Hello everyone, how's it going? Who've we got? McDugs, Summers, I saw you got into the Discord. Alzy, got Nix, Big Mick, Carlos, Felix, DMY. How's it all going, everyone? Carlos, I just wanted to say how grateful I am with all your tutorials. I hope you get to do more soon. Thank you very much, Carlos. I really do appreciate that people appreciate the content and all the tutorials. I am working on a tutorial currently. I haven't quite finished painting it yet. I won't show you too close because I haven't shared this with the patrons or members yet, but they know what I'm working on. So, influencer, I'm never going to get used to these. So they're just ultramarines. So I'm doing ultramarines just off the back of Space Marine 2 and how popular that is. And really I should have done an updated ultramarine tutorial a long time ago. So the reason it's taken so long is because I've chosen to paint 5. Peter's Stories and Reviews, Donovan, hello. Summers, I need a video on how to mix paint. Well, there's 2 ways you could look at it. The actual mixing the paint isn't too difficult. It's probably more ratios. So whenever I do a mixing, whenever I mix paints in a video, I always consciously make it an equal amount. Because if you're mixing paint for an army, you're gonna have to worry about the ratio all the time. So usually a 50-50 mix is my go-to, or you could pre-mix a pot, especially if you're doing a bigger army. But Nix gave a good suggestion, using a separate brush. I don't always use a separate brush, but I'm full of bad habits. Do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, personally, I always try and see if a mix that I'm after is already an existing colour in the range, just for ease and how straightforward it is. Do I, Peter's Stories and Reviews, do I have a tutorial about a Dreadnought? I do. So last year with the Leviathan box set, you had the Ballistus Dreadnought, and there is a tutorial. It is an Ultramarine tutorial, but the techniques and steps I show people in that video, so glazing and getting that gradient on the armour, the highlighting, the battle damage, how you can add transfers, and I also do sort of masking for a stripe, so there's a lot of stuff in there that you can actually use to do all different kinds of chapters. Darth Infamous, good morning. So yeah, that's what I've been mainly working on this week, is the Ultramarine video. I was hoping to have it finished by now, but because I chose to do 5 Marines, it takes a lot longer. So I would say, because I'll do the chunky highlight, edge highlight, finer highlight, and then the spot highlight for the armour. And just doing those highlights for the armour, it's taken me 3 days to do those for 5 Marines. That's why it's not really manageable to do a whole army unless that's what you want to commit to. But you're definitely not going to be able to paint an army like that very quickly. So that's why a lot of my personal armies I'll tend to stick to maybe 1 edge highlight and a spot highlight. So how is everybody? What's everybody working on? So McDugs, late to the party. I just finished my Ballistus from Leviathan box, sealed the deal with transfers. Yeah, I mean, The Infernus Marines have been sitting on my shelf for a year. So I think that's probably why I chose to do 5, just so I can finally get them done. But I haven't had much chance to really do much else of the hobby. Just because I'm working a lot on videos at the minute. So what we're going to do today, we'll let more people come in for about another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll have a look at all the latest news and stuff on the Warhammer community, see what's going on there. There's quite a bit actually that I'm quite interested in, and then we'll have a little break, and then we come back. We're going to do a tier list for Age of Sigmar Miniatures, just like we did with the 40k, but there isn't so many miniatures this time. I think last time there was 31 miniatures, whereas this time it's a bit more manageable. Next quick question, are chunky highlights used for large armor pieces? So chunky highlights are a type of highlight. They sort of soften the edge highlights, because an edge highlight on its own can look very it can be too much, I guess, but a chunky highlight will soften the edge highlight. But you can do an edge highlight for any size miniature. So if you have a look on, say, any studio painted miniature, especially on Space Marines and armor, is the most common place where you're going to see it. You'll see the chunky highlight. So if you do an edge highlight and you're wondering why it might seem a bit too much, or there's a lot of contrast in it, it's because you might be missing that chunky highlight. Donovan just finished a group of tree revenants this weekend. I'm going to take a break from trees though now and move on to Araman and Titus. Darth Infamous finishing up Commandos for October. I'm working on Chaos Warrior Mini. Working on a Chaos Warrior Mini of the month painting competition. Very nice. McDugs, I'm working on NIDS from the Leviathan box, so I can run a combat patrol game with my sons. Also working on a sub 2,000 point Space Wolves army. There's rumours that Space Wolves coming out soon. That'd be interesting, because I thought the Krieg were going to be next. It'd be nice to see them sort of have Space Wolves in there. I'm not sure if they'll have as big a release as the Blood Angels, but I think they would deserve it. I'm still working on Tyranids for a combat patrol as well, so I think they'll come next after my Space Marines, just for me personally. Peter Stories and Reviews. So with glue, so there's different kinds of glue. You get the sort of a thicker, gloopier glue, but you get like a thinner version as well. So the glue that Games Workshop sell is like a thicker glue. So if you are using that, you don't need to run. I would probably just. It is tough. It's just all about control and practice, because I could say do this and that. But personally, I do use Tamiya Thin. Which is, you've probably seen it, which is this stuff. And it comes with a little brush. And the benefit from using a thinner glue like this is you can apply it once the pieces are together. I do use the thicker glue, but I tend to use that on the larger miniatures and vehicles, just to create a stronger bond. But for the smaller miniatures, you could use something like Tamiya Thin. Let's see. Owsy, I'm good, thanks. I'm currently working on Deathwing Knights. Lots of detail. Yeah, the Deathwing Knights are really nice. I'm really tempted to do some, maybe next year, after I've done all my other projects. Yeah, Peter says if you use too much glue, you can sort of wipe it away, but you do need to be careful because it can create texture on the surface. So Summer sent my first mini in the Discord. Need to work on my highlighting for sure. Still have a whole Death Guard combat patrol box. I have seen your miniatures. I will comment on it in the Discord when I get a chance, but they are looking good. McDugg's needs to get into the Skaven Tide box. Yeah, I'm looking to buy an Age of Sigmar starter box in a couple of weeks to do a couple of videos on. I've just got a big smell of glue now. I'm getting high. Eric the Gorper, Space Wolves and the Salamanders are my boys. Cheeseburger the Second. Thoughts on Lord Croak? Lord Croak is in the list for the second half of the stream, so you'll get my thoughts on him a bit later. I don't want to spoil anything. So Tamiya cement, yeah. So you get 3 types of Tamiya glue. You get like a white version, a dark green version, and a light green version. The white is a Tamiya thicker cement. Then you get a mid one, which is just Tamiya thin, and then you get a lighter green one, which is Tamiya extra thin, quick setting or quick drying. So I would just stick to the Tamiya thin, which is sort of like the middle dark green bottle. DMY, I'm working on my new Repulsor Executioner for my birthday right now. Yeah, I've got a Land Raider I want to paint, and I'm thinking about getting an Impulsor to do for a video soon. There's a Games Workshop preview show coming in November, I think they said. But now that the Space Wolves are being leaked, they'll probably show something. I think the Emperor's Children are more likely to be the end of next year. So what time are we on? Okay, I think it's about time we look at some news in the community and the Warhammer community. Let's move over to the screen share. Something I keep forgetting to do is when I start the stream, I always forget to start on the starting soon screen. So if you go back, you'll always see me sort of like notice that I'm not on the right screen, which is quite funny. McDog's tabletop ready. Would you consider painting the Land Raider on a stream? Painting on a stream, I do want to try out by the end of the year. What I need to do though is buy a webcam, because the camera I'm using now, I'll set up as a painting camera, and then I'll have a webcam sort of filming my face. But I'm just gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna do it. Because if I haven't said already, my plan is, I've got plans for future live streams, and one of the plans is the weekend between Christmas and New Year is to spend that whole weekend live streaming and doing a paint along. I just haven't decided what I'm going to do for a paint along. It's either going to be the starter set with the paints and miniatures in, or it might just be a generic Space Marine. So I just need to see, but I just need to feel like I can achieve it in a weekend. So it'll probably be like 8 hours each day. And that's the weekend between Christmas and New Year. But I'll put a big plan together and let everybody know what they would need for it at the beginning of December. So the idea is obviously a lot of people will be getting a lot of new miniatures for Christmas, and a lot of new people will be coming in to the hobby. And it's not always ideal just to watch a video. So I think to have a bit more of a personal experience with me and painting along, and me being able to sort of explain things in more detail, and you guys can ask me questions, I think it'll be more fun for people. And then if that works out, I can do more sort of painting live streams as well, because I would like to do live streaming once a week, but I don't think I could do this format of live streaming once a week. So maybe it'll be this format for extra content, and then maybe live stream for painting. Darth Infamous, I already have my colour scheme planned for the Death Guard kill team, a deep green blue ocean theme. One of the things I do want to talk about is the new kill team that they've announced, which is very exciting. So, excuse me a minute, I've just had a drink. So let's see what's available next week first. So this yesterday, all the Blood Angels became available, I think, for the pre-order. So I thought the kill team would be out closer to Christmas, so you can actually pre-order the kill team for next week. It's probably likely to be a 2-week window to pre-order this, and I think Games Workshop is made the right decision with this. And what I love about this set is the scenery. If you haven't seen it, the scenery is I think it's MDF, I think they say, yeah, so it's MDF terrain, which is kind of setting a precedent now for them, because this is what they should do in the starter sets for the main game. To have already to have terrain that you can just take out of the box and use, it is amazing, rather than having to build and paint that as well. That's more appealing to me. I think this is brilliant. And the fact that they've used Marines and Death Guard from I think it was the Blind Hero packs, I think this is such a winner product that everyone should get if they're wanting to start 40. This is probably the best way to get into 40k, because it's more of there's less of a barrier. And kill teams are very more of a straightforward game. I'm not sure how the rules are for the new kill team, but I'm going to be getting this kill team set because I know I've done a lot of Space Marine tutorials, but it's the Death Guard that I'm interested in. I'm thinking I might do an updated Death Guard tutorial, or at least an alternative colour scheme for them. Yeah, it may even be that the thing at the minute for me is that I need to do a beginner Skaven tutorial and a beginner Skaven tutorial and a beginner oh my god, Skaven and Stormcast, because I've been saying, oh, I'm doing those tutorials for a long time, because I've done Stormcast and I really need to do a Skaven one, and they'll be done before Christmas. But I think this is going to be the project after that box that I buy. If I do paint the Space Marines in this box, it will be a beginner friendly tutorial rather than doing all the highlights and more advanced tutorials that I do now. And I'm very tempted to do Imperial Fists, because that needs, by that I do need to do an updated Imperial Fist tutorial, but I would want to paint this how I would want to paint it. So it'll be Death Guard and Imperial Fists, sort of more of a beginner level, and then maybe do a how to play kill team. But that's, I need to think on it. McDugs, by the way, they have some of the older kill team data cards on the download section on Warhammer Community. I didn't know that. Yeah, there's a lot of resources on the Warhammer community for rules and stuff. Let's have a look actually. If this set isn't out yet, so actually if they do release the rules for free, it won't be until these guys come out. So let's have a look what's actually in the box. What, instead of just blabbing about it, sorry. So you've got 4, 5, 6, 7 Space Marines, and what I love, it's a mixture of the different kinds of Space Marines. You've got the Heavy Intercessor, a Commander, you've got the Eliminator. I just think it's, for anyone coming into the hobby, it's a great variety. And these, so I'm definitely tempted to do some videos for this set. And I think Kill Team is a great game anyway. I've played past editions of it, and I think if you're trying to get your friends into Warhammer or Warhammer 40,000, a skirmish game is more likely to win them over, because even if you have both units, it's easy to show them rather than trying to set up a big 40k game. Especially if you get everything in the box with the tokens, it's just more user friendly. Fraser M, hello. Lucky Fives, hello. Lucky Fives, evening everyone. Thank you for the Chaplain tutorial, Michael. I can't wait to try it. The Chaplain tutorial is a funny one because I've not played Space Marine 2. And I didn't realise that type of chaplain appeared in the game, which was just serendipity really, but I soon found out that nobody really likes that character. But it was a very popular tutorial, but it was a recognisable miniature just because of the game, which was very lucky on my behalf because I didn't realise. So the plan is, after the Infernus Marines, I do want to do Reboot Guilliman. Not Reboot Guilliman, I keep saying Reboot Guilliman. Marneus Calgar. I want to do Marneus Calgar, but he's not available at the minute. So hopefully maybe next weekend he becomes available, or I can do a tutorial. Because Games Workshop, it's out of stock stuff, they're getting better at it, to be fair. McDugs, I forgot if it's been asked, but what faction do you play on the table? So my favourite faction is Orcs, but I've got Space Marines. I like Tyranids are very interesting to me, and I'm working on an army for those. I want to work on an Eldari army next year, and also Necrons. But if I had to say my favourites, would be Orcs, and I've probably used and played with Orcs more than any other faction, and it's probably my largest collection. So if anyone wants to know what my collection looks like, or what I have painted or unpainted, I do have a video on the channel showing you all. I don't have that live stream anymore because I accidentally deleted it, which I shouldn't have done. That was a mistake on my behalf, and I don't have it to upload it again. Fraser M, beginner guide similar to the official combat patrol tutorials would be good. Single colour edge highlight for most important details would be helpful. Yeah, that's what I'd be thinking. I'd just be... So very similar to my getting started on painting your first miniature tutorial. I don't know if anyone's seen my older getting into Warhammer 40k for the 9th edition videos. It'll probably be very similar to those, where it's painting Ultramarines for beginners, and I had a painting Necrons for beginners. So it's all very sort of like a recess shade, washes, edge highlight, very basic, but enough to make your miniatures look really nice. And you can even sort of expand on that and do some fun techniques like painting chips, which isn't that difficult, to be fair, and it's the more fun things, and it'll be sort of showing you how to do transfers. And I think the Death Guard would be really fun to do for beginners as well, showing them how to do the... there we go. Because obviously these have got a lot of sores and boils and corrosion, so these would be really fun to sort of showcase fun techniques for beginners. And then obviously the Space Marines would be really good just to showcase the techniques. So I'd show these first, the Space Marines, and then move on to the Death Guard. Because you always have to obviously build a bit of a foundation. And that's, a lot of people ask me about the order of doing things and how they should paint miniatures. So every time I do a tutorial, I always think about the best order to do things. And generally it's paint all your base colours, get those shades and recessed shades and washes done, because they tend to be really messy to get down and do. So you still need to be tidying up after working on that and getting the definition. And then you work on your highlights, where more control has to come into it. And then you finish up doing the more fun things. Christopher Harbury, hello. Well, I'm glad you made it as well. Christopher Harbury, have you tried the slap chop method of painting? I haven't. I feel, so for me the slap chop method is a zenithal highlight with washes over. It is a great method for getting miniatures painted, but the reason it looks so good for people on the internet and on YouTube videos is because they have a great foundation of painting to begin with. And I feel like it's a very limiting technique that you can't sort of move from. You get sort of backed up into a corner if that's sort of your go-to. If you want to get armies painted, then it's probably for you. Personally, I'll just use the contrast method. I'm not sure why it blew up and everybody was talking about slap chop. It seems to have died down, but I wouldn't recommend it as a go-to method, only if you wanted to get armies painted. For me, I would still recommend the way I show to paint in my videos, just because it creates a great foundation for you to build upon in the future. But everybody's different, and it depends what you want to get out of the hobby and how you want to paint miniatures, because there's lots of different ways. But I would say, regardless, it's great to have a good foundation of those techniques and methods. And I feel like if you go straight to slap chop, you sort of deny yourself that. McDugs, I came in at the tail end of 9th. That command box tutorial helped me learn the fundamentals. Yeah, that was a big project for me to do. I think there was 4 videos in total for that. So I did a how to play 40k, which was an hour-long video, but that showed you how to build the miniatures and get your base colours down and get the miniatures ready for playing. And then each faction had its own video to sort of bring it up to getting it painted with edge highlights, etc. And then the terrain. Peter, stories and reviews. You got Blood Angel basic beginner tutorial. So you could probably watch those beginner tutorials and apply it to any chapter. Because if I did Blood Angels, I would have to do all the chapters. So I try and, every time you see me do an Ultramarine video, I don't treat it as an Ultramarine video. I try to treat it as a Space Marine video. Which you can, because all you would need to do is change the colours. Because I do have, obviously I've got a Blood Angels tutorial. So if you sort of mix and match and pick and mix the tutorials, generally you should be able to achieve what you're after for an army. If I could do every kind of video ever, I would. It's just a lot of time and effort, which I don't mind, but there's so much to get done. Maybe one day when I've got enough money to hire other people, but that's a long way off. But for now, I try and make videos that have things I haven't done before, or update older videos where I feel like it's needed, because I don't paint like that anymore, or I've got more to add to it. What's the contrast method again? Just contrast paint over white base coat. Yeah, the contrast method for me is just using the contrast paints, because they already provide the definition for you. That's why they were created. and you can use them over a lot of different undercoats. But the White Scar, the Wraithbone, and the Grey Seer are all formulated to use the contrast paints over. And the reason those undercoats are great for the contrast is because they're more satin. They've got like a smoother finish to them, so the contrast runs off them better. Whereas if we're using, say, one of the more traditional undercoats like a Macragge Blue or Mephiston Red, they've more of a matte texture to them, so the contrasts don't run so much, they're not as fluid. But the White Scar, Grey Seer, and the Wraithbone are brilliant for contrast paints, because you need a bright undercoat as well, so you can take advantage of that vibrancy from contrast paints. And I love like a bright colour scheme anyway, so I love the contrast paints, and they've got so much potential. Because if you're doing a Zenithal highlight, which is where you spray a miniature black and then you hit it with a lighter colour from the top to sort of mimic where light would be hitting a miniature, then it's really tough to do. And I know Slapchop sort of combats that, because you can dry brush it and it's a lot more intentional rather than just using sprays, which is a benefit of Slapchop over just using a Zenithal. But contrasts do a great job without Zenithal, and they're probably better without a Zenithal or the Slapchop, like the contrast, like the light contrast underneath. Gribbo Calzone, I hope I'm saying that right. Grillbo. You're a new name, so welcome to the stream. Do you recommend varnish for displaying miniatures? I do get asked this a lot as well. Personally, I don't recommend using a varnish after you've painted a miniature, because it affects the colours. So if you've got subtle gradients, and say like the chunky highlight for example will disappear, because the way the varnishes work is going to affect how light reflects off that miniature, so you're not going to see all the hard work that you've done. What I've always suggest, the miniatures are plastic and the paint is very robust, and if you finish painting a miniature, if you leave the paint to dry for say a couple of days, it's going to cure and that paint becomes a lot tougher and it's dried properly. So I know undercoats and paints, they dry pretty quickly, but you can still sort of scratch it off. But if you give it a couple of days, it fully dries and it's more protected and it's more robust. The only time you might want to use a varnish is over metal miniatures, just because it's tougher for the paint to stick to that metal. But in that case, I'll probably do an undercoat over that and then varnish, or you could do a varnish and then undercoat over that and then paint the miniature rather than varnishing it at the end. But again, it's personal choice. If you want to varnish your miniatures once you've finished, you could either go for a satin finish or a matte finish. It's a personal choice, but always just do it on a test. Just test out first and see how you feel about it. Christopher Harbury, yeah, I tried the Slapchop method last night. I haven't painted in years. My miniatures looked terrible. Yeah, you just have to be careful what the people on YouTube are showing you. They make great videos, obviously, but they look good because they've already got a great foundation for painting, and they understand how to make it look good, and they do add extra highlights and glazing and stuff like that, and they're applying extra techniques that they already know. They aren't just leaving it at a Slapchop and then washes, which I've always felt a bit dishonest. So that's why I've never made a tutorial about it. I have thought about it, but I just felt I couldn't really add anything to the conversation without being negative about it, and I don't really like to be negative, so I just try and sort of guide people to what I think works better. McDoug's contrast method helped me get most of my Space Marines armor from Leviathan box done in a weekend. Yeah, you'll notice that a lot of my recent tutorials, they'll have a contrast version of it as well, and that's how much I like the contrast method, and I think it's worth showing people how to get nice looking miniatures using it. And you'll probably find in the future as well that I'll use a lot of contrast in the videos, or I'll show an alternative contrast version. Saitasma, I hope I'm saying that right. Welcome to the stream. A YouTuber say that using contrast does not do the tricks right, and that we better not use it, so you disagree. Yeah, the contrast, again, it's all personal choice. I would never say avoid things, but always make sure you test things out. Make sure you like that way of doing things first before you commit to a whole army. And I personally like the contrast method, and it isn't for everybody, but it's a great way to get miniatures painted. But always just see people's, to see it as advice on the internet and sort of suggestion, and see if you like it, I always say. Satin finish is great in between matte and gloss. I love Storm Shield technical paint. Yeah, I've really come to really like Storm Shield, which is a matte finish. So I'm trying to center myself in this camera. Grillbow, thank you very much. I've been following your tutorials and I was worried about losing the colour. Yeah, honestly, if your miniatures are plastic, just let the paint fully dry for a couple of days before you start using them. And it's not like you're treating these as toys and you're handling them all the time. It's only if you drop them that you're really going to have an issue, but things are easily fixed or patched up, especially if you haven't varnished them. If you have varnished them, they can still get chipped or the paint comes off. It's noticeable when you try and fix it. What is my Nick says, what is my favourite mini I've painted? Ooh, I couldn't tell you, to be honest. I just love painting in general. I love painting all miniatures, especially if it's a new miniature and a new challenge. So when I come into a new tutorial and I haven't painted it before, that's what excites me, when I get to try new techniques and methods. Some of the standout miniatures that I have painted for myself though, I enjoy painting Abaddon for the retro style video. I enjoy painting the Grey Knights. I would probably say they're in my top 3 because they're really fun to paint, and it was just nice trying out a different way of doing metallics. I also really enjoyed the flash kits just because there's a lot of colour and vibrance in them. You can do a lot of freehand with the checkers. There's lenses. It was very comfortable painting orcs as well. I've really enjoyed painting all the Tyranids because there's no metallics. It's all non-metallics. And the way Games Workshop have painted the Leviathan scheme, there's a lot of variety in that scheme itself. So you don't feel like once you've painted one miniature, you've painted the whole range, which was very appealing to me, and that's why I'm enjoying painting them. But I also really enjoy painting the Doomstalker recently because I'm not very confident in painting metallics. So I feel like I gained a bit of confidence doing that tutorial as well, and I was really happy with the result. So much that I'd be interested in painting a Necron army for myself next year. I did say we were going to look at some news. We will do that. Let's have a look. So Kill Team. Yeah, I'm definitely picking up Kill Team. if you are interested in picking up Kill Team, I would pre-order it because it won't be available. I'm sure it'll sell out really quickly, and it probably won't be available again until after Christmas, or maybe close to Christmas. Just because of the release schedule, you've got all the larger Christmas boxes coming out, so it's just how much that factory is producing. And then all these new Kill Team boxes, I really like the fact that all these Kill Teams are coming with all the cards and tokens with the Kill Team, which is a nice touch. Instead of, obviously you can buy them separately, but there's tokens and stuff in these boxes as well, which is a nice touch. The Chaos Lord, so this is the 40k Chaos Lord. This is a multi-part miniature. Really nice. Saitama is painting the Hivestorm box right now, so that's the first box for the Kill Team. That's with the Vespid. That's a really nice box as well. Everyone's favourite miniature. It's hard to... If you didn't know, people have sort of memed on this miniature. I always say you got to see the miniature in person first, but he does look weirdly proportioned. Like he's really short. But he is human, he's not a space marine. I like the miniature. The older miniature is obviously fantastic, but it did need an update. Would love to have a tutorial on the Vespids. I would need to get some Vespids first. So maybe when there's a separate box for them, because they would be a nice challenge. Because they're very unique in their appearance and style. And then we've got some books. I do like the collector's edition books, but they just sell out straight away. And I know a lot of collectors just get them all. They are very nice. A big Dakar. Warhammer 40,000 horror collection. So if you're into horror for Halloween, I think they also do like a crime sort of series as well, themed in Warhammer. And then Warhammer Plus. So the Citadel Colour the Colour Masterclass is teaching us all how to paint the damaged, irradiated skin so commonly seen on the gangers and industrial workers of the 41st millennium. That'd be quite nice. That's quite interesting. So yeah, you can tell I'm really excited for the Kill Team box. I think it's going to be such a good product. What else did I want to talk about? Squats. I want to talk about squats. If I can... I did have all this ready. It's all clicked off. Give me a moment. Let's have a look at the room engine for the 15th. So what does this look like? Trust us, we have tons of experience with these things. It's definitely one of those two. What is it? Oh, now this is a strange one. Knowing the proclivities of the main technological factions of the 41st millennium and the mortal realms, this is definitely one of two things. A gun that shoots lightning and a fancy wall lamp. What do we think that is? It could be Necron. Doesn't look like Necron though. Let me know what you think it is. While I find the next article. I did try and be prepared, I promise. Some more of the Dark Imperium miniatures out for the epic scale. Let's talk about squats. If I can find. Oh, here they are, here they are. I love the squats from Necromunda. And in the last stream, when I talked about the Votan, I said the Votan should have been the squats. And then shortly after, they started releasing more miniatures for the squats, which I think was quite funny. So these are the exosuits based upon the ancient void suits used by the ancestors, providing unparalleled protection against environmental hazards, profoundly inclement weather. I can't read. Games Workshop do make it difficult to read though, because their words are too big. But these are amazing. Oh, you can't send them. So I guess these are like the Terminators. Yeah, we talked about the reveals for the Ratlins last stream. They look amazing with the tank busters. I love the squats, and they've got these little sort of drones. I don't know why the Votank just couldn't be these guys. These guys just got so much more character. That's my little rant. I just don't think there's enough squat miniatures to sort of use these miniatures instead of the Votan though. Not yet, at least. You've got the trikes. And the thing is, you'll only get 2 trikes in the box, whereas you need 3, at least 3 for a unit. Yeah, I just feel like they missed a trick. Because these would have been so popular. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the steampunk aesthetic. And that's why I really love Necromunda. You might actually see a squat painting tutorial very soon. That might be my selfish tutorial that I do sort of around Christmas. Just of the basic unit. So much character. This is what Votan should have looked like. And if you haven't seen... Let's have a look at the squat range. Maybe I can just search it. Welcome to the channel. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, but welcome. Mosif, evening, long time lurker. I for real like squats, could have been a sub-faction like the Kroot maybe. Yeah, I agree. Although, they will definitely work as their own faction. It's kind of like the cultists. Because I feel like in the grand scheme of Warhammer 40,000, these they do deserve a spot, and I think it would have been nice to sort of build their lore up. You've got that alien race in Doctor Who. I think that's what they remind me of. The Palatine Enforcers are great as well. In there's a gang for everybody in Necromunda. I've spelled that wrong. It shouldn't matter. And the characters are great as well. I just spell squat. A-T. So those Terminator guys that are coming out are sort of like the in-between. Show you this. I don't know if this will shrink down. I just feel like the whole industrial feel of them are so good. Kind of has that sort of Doctor Who Red Dwarf sort of feel to it. The Storm Surge isn't squats, not that I know of. Peter, thank you very much for joining us. Did I notice the lower painting level recently on the box arts? I feel like the level of painting's increasing from Games Workshop personally, as the miniatures become more detailed. But I suppose it depends on the painter, because you might get newer painters. But I suppose it all depends on the miniature and how they want to sort of show off. Because you'll get the box art and then you'll get this the level of the studio level. Is the heavy metal team will do the box art and then the studio may paint a full army to show inside the codexes for more publicity. Yeah, because the characters are great as well, because they all have these little drones with them. That's my rant anyway. The Votan should have been squats. That's all I want to say. And I'm glad that they're fleshing out that range. So I think I'm just going to paint the squats just for me personally, just to have in a collection. Christopher Harbury, have you ever entered into a Golden Demon competition? I haven't entered into a Golden Demon. I think there's a lot of controversy in Golden Demon at the minute. And I feel like it's a big topic. A lot of people... Golden Demon is a competition that has the best painters in the world entering it, so I think people are feeling left out in a way. But it's tough to manage a big competition like that, especially now because it's all over social media, whereas before social media was like a relatively not a prominent thing in the hobby. It wasn't so at the forefront and noticeable, but now it's a big deal to enter Golden Demon and win it. And there's a lot of talented people out there. Not everybody can win it, unfortunately. I think there's nothing wrong with the judging. I think they choose what they feel deserves to win. Because I imagine that they have sort of a list of things that they're looking for and sort of the different techniques in how things are rendered and painted. I think a lot of people are upset that a very basic sort of ultramarine won a statue, but it's probably because the techniques were flawless. It was a good example of what they expect from miniature painting. And instead of trying to put these painters down, you should see it as a inspiration or a great example to sort of build up to and sort of trying to achieve that same level. Because how do you manage it to a lower standard? How can you say to someone, no, that's too good? It's not fair on the other people. It just seems like a silly statement. But I understand the frustration, because there is a very obvious style that tends to win Golden Demon. And it's a very there's a lot of blending, and obviously I don't know how to explain the actual style, but you could see over maybe the past 3 or 4 years the style of the winning miniature. But you can't say that what won doesn't deserve its win. Saita Sama, thank you very much for sticking around. I want to have a look at this. I've done a Joy Toy video. If no one's seen, I was sent some free stuff from Joy Toy. I got some Blood Angel Terminators and some Sisters of Battle, and I made an ASMR video, which I was very proud of. It was a fun video to make. It wasn't very popular, but welcome to the channel, Arjun. Christopher Harbury, it's the heavy metal style that tends to win. I'm going to disagree with that, actually. The style that tends to win is a very over-rendered style. It's almost like an oil painting. We'll have a look. I keep talking when I can actually show you guys. But it's hard to manage. But there probably is an advantage to the heavy metal style in the painting competition. So this is this year's winner. You can't tell me that didn't deserve the Slayer sword. It's immaculate. It's rendered. And it shouldn't matter how long you spend on a miniature. I haven't seen their videos on the subject. Again, I know it's a very big topic at the minute. But it's just all about managing expectations of the people entering the competition. Because it's not a new thing. Golden Demon, there was people used to, the same person tended to win Golden Demon all the time. Like they capped it at 3 wins, and then you couldn't enter the competition anymore. That's what it was like in the past. Personally, I'm not sure how they would go about managing it, but it's just about setting expectations of people. Maybe they need to open more categories. Yeah, this little pool thing, it's probably either UV resin or epoxy resin. Like, this is stunning. Yeah, that's one way, but how do you judge different levels? Because I know they have the young bloods, but there's some really talented people in the young bloods categories as well. Because what if you entered the competition and the judges came to you and said, it's good, but it's not good enough to be in this category. Maybe if you go into this category, it's still a judgment on your painting. I think if they did a regional thing, so maybe per country or regions in your area, so maybe like the northeast, the northwest, London, the south, the Midlands, for example, I think that'll be a better way of doing it, and then the winners from those can come in to be judged against each other. That's probably how I would do it. Because at the minute it's literally a free for all. Everybody, everywhere, sort of just enter one big competition. And I think people just want to be recognised and get the recognition. So I think if you had regionals and just have it over a sort of a longer period of time, maybe over like 2 or 3 months. Lee Allen Evans, would you do a tutorial on painting Space Wolves? Yes, I would. I do want to do Space Wolves tutorial. I'm just waiting for an up, because obviously they've done Dark Angels and they've done Blood Angels, so it's obvious that they're going to do Space Wolves. I just want to wait for their range to come out. Because I did Dark Angels, obviously, when Dark Angels came out. I did some Blood Angels when the Blood Angels came out. So it's just waiting for new miniatures. So, yeah, I don't know if you'd agree with that. I think regionals would be a great compromise to give the recognition to those people who deserve it. But they do other competitions as well. You've got the Armies on Parade. That's another competition, and they do regionals per store, and then they'll do different areas of a country, and then they'll do one big competition at the end with all the winners. And I think that model might work. And just the fact, the amount of people entering this competition, there's probably more people these days as well. And I'm not even sure if Games Workshop will continue to do an in-person events like a games day. But I understand, as I say, I understand the upset that people have, but it's just a hard thing to manage. Because the competition's always been kind of like this, and how it's set out, so maybe it's time for a bit of a change. But again, you can't look at this and go, it's not fair that this won, because it deserves it. McDuck's, my Games Workshop store, is doing something called Thanksgiving. I guess I need to put together my Gladiator. Yeah, if your local shops, your hobby shops and your Warhammer stores do painting competitions. Christopher Harbury, thank you so much.
Christopher Harbury just gifted 0 memberships. Christopher Harbury gifted
thank you so much for gifting a membership. It's really appreciated. Andy, just wanted to say thank you. Your videos are an inspiration and a great source of information for noobs like me to start painting. More 40k orcs, please. I do want to do more orcs. It has been a while since I've done an orc tutorial. I've just got a few tutorials planned up until Christmas now. But expect more orc tutorials next year. There's definitely some miniatures that I do want to paint. So for the orcs, I'm interested in doing a shock attack gun. The big mech with shock attack gun. And I also want to do the new Big Mech miniature that came in a box, quite like a combat patrol box, quite recently. I think they were patrol boxes when they came out, because it's quite a big. It comes with like the teleportation gun, like a small version of the shock attack gun. I might not do both, but I'll do one or the other. But I'll always do an orc tutorial when I feel like it's time. Yeah. Let me know what you think about the painting competition. But it's definitely needed, because we do need to celebrate the talent. But just be careful about opinions that are out there. Because it's not nice just to like mob up on things, so. Christopher Harbury, are there any contrast paints to avoid? No. I would use all the contrast paints. I feel like they can still add to the contrast range, to be honest. I still feel like there isn't enough. But I would always do a test. I think if you search on Google, you could probably see contrast swatches out there. I know War Hipster is a great channel for contrast paints, and a channel that I look to for inspiration for using contrast paints, and where I've learned a lot about contrast paints myself. And he's got a lot of shorts and tutorials, and you can sort of see how he's used them and to get great ideas. Summers, maybe add a time limit. So would that be you only have a certain amount of time to paint a miniature? That would be hard to manage. It'd be like the Guinness Book of Records. You'd have to have someone there monitoring it. Owsy, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you in the next stream. I'd like a nice deep brown for contrast for painting wood or leather. The Cygor brown is a very nice brown. It's a mahogany brown. It's the brown I sort of default to. And you can always mix the contrast paints together as well to get a new shade, or apply them at different stages. So you could do sort of a layer of one contrast colour, and then you could change the hue of it like a glaze with a different contrast. But yeah, that's how I would do moving forward. That's how I would sort of combat some of the issues that people have with the competition, is to add regionals, because that's all people want, is the recognition for the effort and time they put into these miniatures, and they feel like they're just sort of dismissed so easily. But we still need to celebrate those people who do achieve and win in the competition, and who do well, because it's not fair to do otherwise, because it's not their fault. Again, I've done a lot of talking. I think I need a bit of a 5-minute break just to rest my voice, and then we'll get ready to do the tier list for Age of Sigmar Miniatures. So I'm gonna go to the Be Right Back screen, and then be back in a couple of minutes while I get set up, guys. Thank you. Hello again. Can I just take a moment to thank some new subscribers? I'm sorry if I'm missing the alerts. For some reason I can't hear the sound, so when I'm talking I don't always notice the alerts. So we've had Sylvester. We've had a name I can't pronounce, so I do apologise. Arjun and Sushi Roll, who've all subscribed, which means we've just hit 58,000 subscribers on the channel, which is amazing. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. The channel is on track to reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of next year, which is incredible. Iplo, how about Skaven? I am going to be doing Skaven, and I will have them done before Christmas, hopefully. I'm just doing a couple of Ultramarine videos just to sort of take advantage of the popularity of Space Marine 2. So I'm working on some Ultramarines, some Space Marines, and I want to do Marnius Calgar, and then it's going to be Skaven. So I would expect a Skaven tutorial by the end of November, and then a Stormcast video as well, sort of aimed at beginners. Dragon Ninja, or Drago Ninja, hello, welcome to the stream. This is your first stream. I'm really glad you can join us. Hopefully you enjoy your stay. Christopher Harbury, if you're still here, thank you very much again for the gift and a membership. Enjoy your chores. Fearless, nice to see you here. Welcome. I always appreciate your support, Fearless. Thank you very much. So, again, thank you everybody for your support. All your comments and likes on the videos, it really makes a massive difference on the channel. Deathwatch, I'm not sure what Deathwatch is. Is that a new game? I welcome any Warhammer content that puts the hobby in front of people who it wouldn't normally be put in front of. So Space Marine 2 has been fantastic for the hobby. And there's a new show on Prime coming out as well. It's not such a big thing, but it's got like a small animation in it. Dragon Ninja. Okay. I'll remember that. So let's go into this tier list. So last stream we did Warhammer 40,000. This stream we're going to do Age of Sigmar. And I do want to point out that this is just my own personal opinion. Everybody's got their own opinion, which is great. Everyone should. But please don't punish me because I don't put your favourite miniature at a high point in the list. I think I upset a lot of people with my last tier list. But that's understandable. It creates a conversation. But again, it's all for fun. And so for me, it's just about my favourite miniatures and what they mean to me, and whether if I want to paint them or not. Yeah, so Space Marine 2 has gotten a lot of people back into the hobby. So many people. The channel's exploded a little bit because of it. which is great. So the tier list. So this is a tier list. We're going to rank we're going to rank the sort of the centerpieces for Warhammer Age of Sigmar factions. And the way I've chosen these miniatures, I've chosen these miniatures to represent that faction. So I've gone through all the different factions and I've personally picked what I think represents that faction well. There may not all be characters or special characters, but they're generally either probably the more popular miniature for that faction or the largest miniature for that faction. And you can't deny Age of Sigmar itself has some amazing looking miniatures. And even just because these are the largest miniatures doesn't mean they're the nicest miniature in that range. I just chose them because they have more impact. So for example, the Hidden Knights of Slanesh, that whole range is amazing. The Cities of Sigmar range is amazing. What else have we got? Just lately they're knocking out of the park with the Age of Sigmar ranges. But again, I've just chosen these miniatures to represent that faction. But we are still basing it on, we are still judging these miniatures as a standalone, not the actual faction, if that makes sense. There are less miniatures this time to judge because I had 31 for the 40k one and that took a very long time. And there isn't as many factions for Age of Sigmar either, which I'm thankful for. I didn't have a miniature for every 40k faction last time. So not all the Space Marine chapters, for example, got a miniature, which really I should have done, but again, there's a lot of factions. So over here, I've tried to get every faction included and represented. So we've got 5 tiers. So this is your sort of S tier, A tier, B, C, F tier. And we're going to be judging each miniature sort of based on these criterias. So at the top, they're very similar to 40k. I have sort of reworded them a little bit just to be a bit more friendly to them. So at the top we've got, I would collect a faction because of this miniature. So you see the miniature, it's so good that it inspires you to collect the whole range of miniatures. After that we've got, I must have this miniature. So even though you might not want to collect an army because of it, it's still a miniature that you're going to buy, you're going to enjoy, and that you want. Boona, thank you very much for subscribing. Welcome to the channel. You are subscriber 5,000, 58,000 and probably 3. It looks like we've lost a couple of subscribers. I must have said the wrong thing. Oh well. After I must have this miniature, we've got it would be fun to paint. So it'd be a great painting project. And then after that, it's sort of opinion based. It looks cool. You don't necessarily want to own the miniature, but it looks cool. And then last, it's not a miniature that I want personally. I think that in the 40k one I had I'm not fussed, which is a bit harsh because they're still all great miniatures. It's just not a miniature that I want personally. Lee Allen Evans, thanks. I look forward to your Space Wolves tutorial and keep up the great work and content. Death Watch are another army made up of all the other chapters. Yeah, so Death Watch, you see the Death Watch at the beginning of the Space Marine 2 video. It's where Titus sort of ends up after the first game. And they sort of combat the Xenos, so like the alien races of 40k. McDoug's, man, that's me with a Bane Blade. I'd love to have one just to paint. Yeah. I would love to have a lot of miniatures I don't necessarily want an army for. So these are the 5 tiers. So we'll get started. As well, something I've changed this time as well. I've organised bigger pictures so you guys can see the miniatures better. We'll do it in the order here. That's on the bottom. So we're starting with Archaon. Give me a minute while I find the picture. There we go. So there we go. Archaon. So Archaon is probably the first large centerpiece miniature that they made back when they did the old times, and this sort of represents the technology when it became available, because before this they were very limited probably to the size and details and in miniature. And I think as this has to be, I think this was brought out in the late sort of 2000 and maybe close to 2010. I want to say like 2007, 2006. I think around that time when the old times were sort of coming into it and ending sort of like the Warhammer Fantasy Battle range and turning into Age of Sigmar. And I still feel this miniature holds up. It's a massive miniature. Again, I think this was like £100 when this first came out, which was a massive deal. Because following this miniature with the old times, you had the Glotkin, you had the Skaven character on the huge. I can't remember the name of the Skaven character. Sorry. There is a reason why I didn't put that Skaven character in this list, and I'll talk about that when we get to the Skaven. But I think Archaon has to be if I can find my mouse again. Archaon has to be old collector faction because of the miniature. Because the Slaves of Darkness miniatures are amazing. And if you're going to collect that army, you're going to have this miniature. And if you're going to have this miniature, you're going to want to use it in a game, and you're going to want to collect the faction for it. And I think it deserves top spot again for the legacy it created in bringing us the ability to have all these larger miniatures after it. As well, join in the conversation. If you have an opinion on these things, just let me know in the chat. I'm still going to keep reading the chat. Yeah, I think it's well deserved up here. Next up, this guy is called Glutos or Skollion. So this is the Hedonites of Slaanesh. So these are very Persian-like. For me personally, out of the Chaos Rangers, the Hedonites of Slaanesh are the most beautiful, some of the most beautiful miniatures in Age of Sigmar. And this is going to be another easy one for me. This guy is definitely going in old collector faction because of it. But I think the whole Hedonites of Slaanesh range is amazing enough that I want to collect it because of that anyway, regardless of how nice this miniature is. But this is such a fantastic centerpiece as well. This is definitely one you could paint for Golden Demon. And it's kind of a diorama-esque miniature as well. So it's not just one miniature. You sort of have the chance to practice your skills on doing a lot more than just painting a character. And I feel like the Hedonites of Slaanesh are very almost forgettable. They aren't really shown a lot. They're just sort of an unsung hero of a range. But I would say to anyone, go and check that range out, because the Keepers of Secrets miniatures are amazing as well. So if you like that sort of aesthetic of Persians, this is the army for you. Next up, we have got so I've got a list here. So it's just, they're not in order. Is this the right one? No. This is a relatively new miniature. This is the character for Cities of Sigmar. I love this miniature, and I'm gonna own this miniature, and I'm gonna convert it for my Chaos Warriors army. Just because this is a Manticore, and obviously it's a lot nicer than the old Manticore miniature they had, the old Chaos Warriors. So I'm just waiting for the new Chaos Warrior, the new Chaos Sorcerer miniature to come out, and I'll do a bit of a conversion. I haven't decided if I'm going to do video on this yet, but it's such an amazing miniature. It's got presence as well, and I feel like any miniature wings, they sort of knock out the park, because they get more creative with wings every time they sort of bring a new miniature with them out. Big, sort of spread out. There's a lot more character in the wings. For me, this is going to be... Now, I am going to own this miniature, but it's because it's going to go into my Chaos Warriors army. I think it's going to would be fun to paint, and that's kind of why I'm having it. Just because I know it's going to be a lot of fun to paint. And if I wasn't doing my Chaos Warrior army, I wouldn't have this miniature. That's why I know it probably seems really low, but it's still still a good tier to be in, because I still want to own the miniature. But it's great for conversions, and creatures like this you can tend to sort of use in other factions as well, especially Warhammer the Old World. I feel like I'm flying through these already. The next, Ariel the Ever Queen. So this is quite an older miniature as well, when Age of Sigmar sort of first came out, and this is for the Sylvaneth, the Ilariel. So this is one of the Age of Sigmar gods, along with Sigmar and Nagash. There is actually a miniature missing from this, and I think it's from the Dark Elf Witches. I can't remember the name of their faction now. But this is, I still feel like this miniature holds up, especially the actual main character, Ilariel. Sorry, 1 second, I need a bit of a drink. And it's such an amazing centerpiece as well. I think in Age of Sigmar and Warhammer the Old World, cavalry miniatures where characters riding something is automatically a win, rather than just having a character on its own. I think cavalry miniatures are always a favourite. I think this miniature would lend well to a lot of great techniques, and you could use contrast. And on the bug itself, there's opportunities to do glazing and edge highlighting as well. I think there's a Duncan Rhodes tutorial on this miniature, which is still really good. This is going to be another would be fun to paint. I think a lot of the Age of Sigmar miniatures are going to be fun to paint because they're so characterful, and I think fantasy lends itself well to those sort of details, and I think that's why people like fantasy more. Whereas 40k, it's very angular, and all miniatures are quite similar to each other. I would like to own this miniature just to paint. So I think, again, it's going to would be fun to paint. Next up, we have a personal favourite of mine. And I do have one of these. This is the Ironclad, the Archnaut Ironclad. And this is for the Caradron. This, for me, is going to be, again, it's a personal choice. And I collected a Caradron army because of this miniature, so it's going to be bumped up to, I would collect a faction because of this miniature. The actual miniature itself is a lot of fun to paint because you've got a dwarf there who's painting the side. You can't see it in this picture, but on the other side there's like a little Caradron dwarf sort of hanging off the side with a paintbrush, and there's enough detail on the deck as well. It's just a lot of fun to paint, and you can't beat steampunk dwarfs. And I think it represents that whole faction really well, and it's a great centerpiece that if you're going to put on the tabletop, everyone will want to pick up and have a look. If you haven't got this miniature, it's definitely a fun one to paint. Next up, let me just double check. No. You'll have to excuse because some of these names are new to me. Asheron. Oh. What is the name? It is Vizcar. There it is. So this is the new Skaven character. He's on here because he represents the sort of new generation of large character miniatures, which is sort of very similar to the Death Corps, the Flesh Eater Corps range. Mark W, he has a question. Ask honestly. I know I'm talking here, but honestly, if you want to ask questions and type in the chat, you're more than welcome to. I need to make this last at least another sort of 45 minutes at least. I'm flying through them. For paint stripping, have you used an ultrasonic cleaner before? I haven't used an ultrasonic. I haven't used one. I'm interested in using one. I think it would help. I tend to try and avoid having to strip miniatures unless it's an old miniature that I might have acquired from someone else. But I think an ultrasonic bath would help the process. I'm sure you can get some really well priced ones now. So Vizic. So the new Skaven range is amazing. I think this represents the whole range really well, and it just represents the detail and character they're putting into the larger miniatures these days as well. I don't want to just put this in would be fun to paint. It would be fun to paint. I think for me personally, I am just going to put it in. It looks cool, and I'll explain why. And I'm not trying to upset anybody. Because it's quite a new character, so I think it's new on the scene. No one's really it hasn't really got a history behind it. And it's quite an intimidating miniature as well. It does deserve to be in the top tier, I agree, S tier. But this is just based on my own opinion in how I feel about the miniature. So for a lot of people, it's going to be a collector faction because of this miniature. I am going to collect a Skaven army. I don't know if I will own this miniature, but for me personally, it looks amazing. It looks cool, but I don't have the desire to own it or paint it. Not anytime soon, anyway. But it definitely represents sort of the new theme and style of Skaven. I'm a very biased person, I think, when it comes to miniatures, because I do prefer maybe an older generation of miniature or a certain style. Next up, we've got Nagash. If I can find the picture for Nagash. There we go. So here is Nagash. Again, he's a miniature from the old times, the same sort of era as Archaon. So when these larger miniatures coming out, they obviously had a lot of impact because no one really saw anything really like this before. And Nagash is, like Archaon, a huge miniature. Nagash, I will collect a faction because of this miniature. The reason he's going there is he pretty much is that faction. Everything looks like him, and I think you can't really have that faction without him. I do want to own this miniature eventually, and it is because I want to collect that faction. But I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think Duncan Rhodes has done tutorials on Archaon and Nagash, which is still very good. Nagash he hasn't got many details to him either, so I feel like he's a good painting project. So obviously you've got the bone, you've got sort of the, let me bring him up again. You've got these spirits and the cloth. I think he's a great, even for beginners, and I think you can make him look amazing with just contrast paints as well. Next up, we've got the Bone Reaper Mortarch, who is called Usharan. Nope. Eidolon. Nope. I did have him earlier. You're probably all shouting at me right now. No. Summer. Thank you very much for subscribing. Catacross. There we go. I'll edit all the in-betweens out in the video. I love this miniature because it's a diorama and it's more than just the character, and I think it's a great painting project. But it also deserves to be, I will collect a faction because of this miniature. Again, this is personal opinion, but I think it's an epic miniature, and I think it's one of the first miniatures to have this much going on with it. I think this miniature came out in the 2nd edition of Age of Sigmar, when the Bone Reapers first came out, and I just love the aesthetic. It's very sort of samurai-esque. And I'm not sure if you really had sort of a diorama type miniature before. I know, say, like in Warhammer the Old World, you had things like the Casket of Souls for Tomb Kings, but I just think this was the next level. The sort of the new sort of casket of souls. Again, it'll be a great miniature to use contrast. Any miniatures that have a lot of details would work great for contrast. Yeah, Xerxes, the Hydeneth, the Hedonites of Slanesh are very 300-esque in the Persian army. So this is definitely a miniature that I'll collect a faction for. Because I'm not so excited about the rest of the range, because you've painted one miniature, you painted them all. But I think this miniature saves that range. And I hope they sort of expand that range of miniatures even more. And sort of work towards, because so I'm getting a little confused, sorry, because I've got the picture up here, but where my tier list is, this picture isn't here. So I'm just trying to figure out where to put my mouse cursor. So these characters around the main, Catacross, I feel like the whole range would do well to sort of gear towards that in the more sort of samurai-esque armor type aesthetic. Next up, this is a personal favourite of mine. Nope, not that one. Nope, did that one. Oh my. Okay. There we go. Belladama. When I saw this miniature, I thought it was amazing, and it's not a big miniature either, and I'm not a furry, but again, it's another diorama type character, and this would be a great miniature to paint for a competition. And it's a great opportunity to sort of like practice your fur as well. And I'm not sure what the range is called, but it's the undead sort of skeletons and the vampires of the undead. Because there's a lot of factions for the undead at the moment now, but this is sort of like the vampires of the undead. And there are a lot of great miniatures range, but I just love the character this has. Because it's quite simple and straightforward. It's not elaborate, but what's there is elegant. And you've got the opportunity to sort of paint the outfit that she's wearing. And because this is a very personal choice, this is definitely going into, I would collect a faction because of this miniature. And this is the reason why it's on this list, because it's my personal favourite for that, the whole death range. And I actually like this more than, say, like Nagash and the Catacross. Just because it is understated and it might be overlooked. Yeah, I love it. Again, a great miniature to use contrast on. You don't even need to do a lot to make it look amazing. Let me just center up. Next up, we've got the Flesh Eater Courts character, Ushuran. This is another impressive miniature as well. I don't think anyone's really expecting the Flesh Eater Courts to get such an iconic character for them. I'm not really sure. I haven't really looked too much into the lore of this guy, but the miniature really stands out for me. Molly, thank you very much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the channel. This guy is going to go in to would be fun to paint, just because I don't really have a personal attachment to this miniature. I would have put it in, it looks cool. The same with the Skaven character, but I just feel like the character just shouts. It has more character than the Skaven, because I tell you what, that Skaven character is very much like the Vermin Lords, whereas this is quite unique in the range of the Flesh Eater Courts itself. It sort of stands out, if that makes sense. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to paint, because I can paint a lot of the Skaven army and get that itch out the way without having to paint the Skaven character. Whereas if I did a Flesh Eater Courts, I would still have the itch to paint this miniature, even if I had the rest of that range. And it's all, to be honest, it's almost a collector faction because of it. Because the Flesh Eater Courts range, looking at it, it's really nice. And definitely one I'd be interested in sort of taking a closer look at in the future. Next up, we've got Lord Croak. So this is another sort of a reimagined character from Warhammer the Old World, from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, just like Archaon, just sort of like made more impressive and bigger. This is an amazing miniature because of the way it's amazing how they've sculpted. Well, how would you put it? So my brain's dying now. When you take a picture, the composition of this miniature is amazing. And it's, for me, this is going in. I'll collect a faction because of it. Oh, actually, I am going to drop. I'm going to drop it down to I must have this miniature. I do want Lord Croak, but I don't necessarily want the Xeraphon, the Lizard Men. But this is definitely a must-have miniature. I think it's just because of the details, and it's such a great character and an iconic character. It's a miniature I'm definitely going to have for myself in the future. If I did do a Lizardman, if I did collect the rest of the range, it would be for the Warhammer Old World. And I'm not sure this guy would fit on the base required for that, the new base size. But I love this miniature. So if you're really into sort of like your Aztec, Mayan sort of aesthetic, this miniature is definitely for you. Donovan almost bought into Xeraphon just because of that miniature. It's such a cool mini. No, I agree. But I feel like there's already too many because you want to collect a faction because of it. So it's gonna go into I must have this miniature. Because personally, to be honest, they probably all deserve to be I want to collect a faction because of the miniature. But you have to draw the line somewhere. Next up, we have another personal favourite of mine. And I know there are a lot of other miniatures and characters in this range, but I feel like this miniature represents the Gloomspite gets the best, and that's the Mangler Squig. And I've always loved the idea of the Mangler Squig and how it is in the game and the actual miniature. So when I saw this, when they brought this range out and they showed this new miniature for the Mangler Squig, I was so excited. And I've had a few Night Goblin armies now, and obviously you've seen my most recent iteration of the Night Goblins for the Warhammer Old World, and I've got a couple of these in that army, because I wouldn't be able to have a Night Goblin army without having the Mangler Squig. So it's definitely another one for the top tier. I will collect a faction because of this miniature. And it's a good size as well. It's got so much character. You can't not enjoy looking at it. Even the whole Gloom Spike range is a lot of fun. But yeah, I've painted a fair few of these in my time now, and I don't get bored of painting them. And I still want to paint another one. Next up is Gobsprak, another personal favourite of mine. So this is the wizard character for the Crawl Boys. So like the new Orc faction for Age of Sigmar, and we saw this guy released in the 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar back in 2001, just as we were coming back out of lockdown. I do have this miniature, so if you do, again, you can go watch my video of all the miniatures sort of I've painted and collected. This guy is one of the miniatures that I have. Even though I do have him, he would, for a lot of people, he is a miniature to collect a faction because of. Would collect a faction because of this miniature. He's definitely a must-have. As soon as I saw this miniature, I was always going to own it, and it's a lot of fun to paint as well. Even if I didn't have a Crawl Boys army, I would have definitely bought one of these to paint and just have for display, because you get sort of an alternative to this miniature as well, which is the Crawl Boy boss. So you can actually have 2 of these in your army with a sort of a different head as well. And I feel like it's a great representation of the actual faction, because it's a different style of orc to a lot of the other orc ranges that Games Workshop usually do, which are very more sort of cartoonish. Whereas this range, it sort of matures the orcs, and you get more of a Lord of the Rings style orc range. And you just haven't seen like a large vulture type bird before in miniature form. I know you have dragons, etc., and giant eagles, but I think this is just a great idea to be on a giant vulture. It suits the Crawl Boys massively, because obviously they're in a swamp. It just fits the aesthetic really well. Next up, we have... So this is the more... I did have it a minute ago. The Maw Grunter. So this is like the bigger version of the Gore Grunter for the Iron Jaws. I've chosen this over the say like the character on the giant dragon, just because it's a more recent miniature with a lot more details. And for me, this is just a better miniature to represent the Iron Jaws range. Because I can't remember the name of the actual character on the dragon you do get for the Iron Jaws, but I've probably painted about 3 or 4 of those now. And they're a lot of fun to paint. And when I saw this, I thought it was a perfect addition to the range. I did have an idea to convert this guy up for the Warhammer Old World, because I had the idea of doing Savage Orcs and doing a Savage Orc boss on this, encountering it as a chariot. So I think it fit on the appropriate size base for a chariot, and I think it would suit Savage Orcs better than an actual chariot to have just a huge boar. But you can have sort of 3 variations of this miniature. You got the character, and then you've got the actual just having it as a Gore Grunter, and then I think you've got one where you can just have it as a huge sort of war machine, kind of like the Mummock in Lord of the Rings, where it's just a giant elephant, but it's the sort of stampedes throughout the battle. But I love this miniature. I think it'll be a lot of fun to paint. I think for most people, I think that's where it should be. Again, I feel like I'm just going to put everything in. I'll collect it. I will collect a faction because of it. I'll collect a Nine Jaws faction anyway because I'm a big Destruction and Orcs fan. It's a must-have miniature. As soon as I saw this miniature, I knew I wanted it. And I think Iron Jaws are probably going to be towards the end of next year. And if I did a Nine Jaws painting tutorial, it's going to be this miniature that I paint for the channel. Because if I'm showing people how to paint this, then you can use it to paint the whole range. Apart from a dragon, but it'll cover Gore Grunters, it'll cover Iron Jaws, for example. The sort of like the basic inventory with the armor and the skin. It covers a lot just in this one miniature alone. So that's, for me to want to do a tutorial on it, it's got to be good. So that's probably going to be more towards sort of Easter next year when I've decided to sort of paint this guy for the channel. But it's definitely a must-have miniature for me. Next up, we have Teclis, and this is for the Lumineth. Again, the Lumineth range itself, I love. And eventually I do want to do a Lumineth range. And Teclis here is the epitome of what you think of with fantasy, with an elf. I can't remember the name of this, like this mount creature. Obviously, he doesn't ride it, but it's again with lore. What they've done with the composition with this miniature is amazing. I love it with Teclis sort of floating in the air, because the miniature, with the miniature, he's attached to the wing, but the way you've done it looks amazing, like he's floating. Because they obviously could have just had him sitting on the base, but they're a bit more creative with how it looks on the base. Where would I put it? So Teclis for me, again, it should go into collector faction but I think the actual whole range itself is amazing. You don't necessarily need this you could collect a Lumineth army without it, even though it's probably a go-to miniature. This is a difficult one. It's going to go in, it looks cool, because it looks amazing. Me personally, I just don't necessarily want it to paint, and it's not a must-have. I think when I do get around to doing a Lumineth army, I am going to own it, but it's not a priority. So it's going to go into looks cool, just because it looks amazing. I love the composition, but it's not necessarily a miniature that I'm desperate to get. I think that would probably upset a lot of people, because it is an amazing miniature, but there are so many centerpiece miniatures for the Lumineth. Dom, thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the channel. I wonder if I lost subscribers because of these opinions. I wonder. So next up, I love these miniatures, and I think everybody loves these miniatures. That's the Stormdrake Guard. So these are for the Stormcast. And again, I know there's much bigger miniatures, and there's bigger characters for the range. But these, everybody loves these miniatures because it's dragon cavalry. And I think it's like the first time that we've seen Dragon Cavalry. And these definitely are going in to S tier. I would collect a faction because of this miniature. Because everybody collected this. And you saw everybody use these for the Stormcast. Rightly so, because I love them. I want these miniatures. But I love the new sort of style of Stormcast with the more elegant armor. So there are two variations of these. There's some, I think you get these with the spears, and you get flaming swords and shields. I think I've picked these ones because these are more classic sort of cavalry with the lances. I've seen plenty of these and I never get bored of seeing them, and they've got great presence on the tabletop and they're a great size. Hammer Down, I just saw you alive. I just started painting my first 40k miniatures and your videos have been fantastic. Thanks so much. Oh, I'm really glad. Welcome to the hobby. It's always fun for me to sort of usher in a new generation of miniature painters. That's what I love most in helping people get into the hobby. And welcome to the live stream. Just talking about my favourite. Well, we're judging Age of Sigmar Miniatures based on my personal opinions. Next, yeah, so the Stormdrake, amazing miniatures. But anyone, I think they're worth, because I think you just have like 6 of these and you've got an army. You don't even need to collect the rest of the faction. Next up, this is one of my personal favourites as well. This guy is called Eidolon. So these are from the range, not Lumineth. Oh, my brain is definitely shutting down now. Hang on. It's going to annoy me. Let's find out the name of this range quickly. If anyone wants to say in chat quickly. These are order. Idoneth. So these are the Idoneth. So these are the sort of elves of the sea. The reason I chose this miniature is because I think it's another great representation of the actual range. There isn't actually that many miniatures in that range. But this is definitely one of my favourites just because of the cloak made of water, and it's quite a large miniature as well. You've got, how's that look? Can you see? A miniature that I did want to pick. Let's get these off. Was this, because I'm a big fan of turtles. Leviathan. But I just love this. I just love the Eidolon miniature. Just because of the unique details. Because I just wouldn't mind painting that water cloak, and the armor as well. It's amazing, and again, it's an impactful character, and it's a large character that would stand out on the tabletop. This is going to go. Sorry, I'm just fighting my mouse. Would be fun to paint, just because of the unique details and that water cloak. It's going to be and would be fun to paint. Matthew, thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, since I've seen this miniature, I've definitely wanted to paint one. And hopefully I'll get around to it one day. I did think about doing a tutorial for this guy on the channel, and I might still do that. So I do want to do more Age of Sigmar base tutorials for the channel in the future. And I think the Morgrunter is going to be one, and Eidolon is going to be one. But yeah, a lot of fun to paint. Up next, so this is kind of a token miniature for me for the Behemoth range. It's an amazing range. I just feel like there isn't much going on with it because all the miniatures are obviously based around this one sort of base miniature. I think it would be fun to paint. It doesn't excite me. And I think that's just because it's a very humanoid miniature. It's just a big human, basically. So for a lot of people, it's probably a must-have miniature. It'll be fun to paint, even I'll collect a faction because of it. But for me, it's going into not a miniature that I want. I don't know how everyone feels about that. Idenf Deepkin, yeah, thank you. And yeah, it's just how I feel about this range. I just feel like it's a range that needs fleshing out, especially this miniature here, which is a character. It's still based on that basic frame that already existed. It's just extra bits sort of put onto that frame rather than just having a brand new miniature entirely, which was disappointing. Because they are a great range and the miniatures themselves are amazing. I just feel like they're all the whole range would just look the same on the tabletop. Next up, so another miniature another faction that didn't make it. Oh no, it was only the Daughters of Cain range is the faction that didn't make it onto the list, and that's just a mistake on my part. So they're under order Daughters of Cain. So the miniature that obviously probably would have went onto the list would have been Morathi, this character here. And I'm going to be honest. Let's get rid of this Behemoth guy a second. She does look cool, but I probably would have put her under not a miniature that I want. And I have actually had a Daughters of Cain army. But for me personally, I don't know, actually, it looks, we'll bump her up to it, looks cool. She looks amazing. It's just personally, I might collect a Daughters of Cain. I have had one in the past. I have just not had a Morathi. But I just wanted to give an honourable mention to Morathi because she did deserve to be on the list. I forgot to add her, unfortunately. Lord of Change next. So the original Lord of Change was the miniature that got me excited about the Chaos range originally. When I first started, probably back in 1998 now, was when I first sort of came into the hobby. And the Lord of Change, the original miniature, was one of the first miniatures that I spotted and fell in love with. I don't think this new Lord of Range captures that same character the old miniature does, though. I feel like the new Tzeentch range and aesthetic is too complicated. And I understand why, because it's Tzeentch is ever changing. There's just a lot going on. I do want to own this miniature, just because I want to have a Tzeentch collection. But at the moment, for now, he is just going to be in It Looks Cool. Again, just because I've got so much nostalgia and love for the older miniature. And I don't think they captured that same feeling as the older miniature. So I think the older Lord of Change miniature. Let's have a look. Retro Lord of Change. Let's see if we can get a good picture of it. Oh, we don't want to. So this is the old Lord of Change. And I feel like this has a different kind of character to it, because it feels like more of an individual. And it feels like it has a personality. Like the Skeksis from Dark Crystal. Oh, hang on, I've got too many windows here, I'm slowing down. Let's close these up. 1 minute, I'm getting a bit of lag. There we go. I just feel like this Lord of Change, it feels like there's nothing unique about it. You could probably have 5 of these on the tabletop. It feels very a generic design. Although the design itself is amazing, it's a beautiful miniature. Oh, I'm getting a lot of lag. Hopefully you're not getting any lag. Yeah, so that's the only reason I'm a bit disappointed about this miniature, because it's a very generic feeling creature. Like you would have a unit of it. It doesn't feel like it has a personality. So that's why I can only put it under It Looks Cool. The Great and Clean one next. Do I have a picture of the Great and Clean one? Yes, I do. So here's the Great and Clean one. And I know you have Rotigus is the character form of this, but I feel like the Great and Clean one stands up on its own. And I feel like this has a lot more character to it than the Lord of Change does. And I absolutely love the Great and Clean one. And I feel like if I put it any lower than our collector faction because of this miniature, I would upset a lot of people. I think Nurgle is a very loved faction. And the Great and Clean one, they've done such a good job of updating this miniature. And I feel like they didn't achieve the same thing with the Lord of Change, the Bloodthirster, and the Keeper of Secrets. Maybe the Keeper of Secrets is an amazing miniature again, like the Lord of Change, but the Great and Clean one has so much character to it. And I would want, and because of it, I do want to collect either like a 40k demon army for Nurgle or a fantasy army, just so I can own this, just so I can have this Great and Clean one. Every time I think about painting Nurgle and painting all those pustules and details, I just feel like I'm just going to feel nauseous painting them all the time. That's a credit to the sculptors and people who design these miniatures. Donovan, I'm curious, how do you feel about the Fate We, the character model of the Lord of Change? I did think about putting that in place of the Lord of Change, but I feel like the character versions of any of the Great Demons were almost like an afterthought. I don't think they stand up individually. So it's like, oh, we've got a great and clean one. It'd be great to make a character form of this. Or if there's a Lord of Change, it'd be great to have like a character version of this. I feel like the great demons should be able to stand up on their own without being a character version of themselves. They're just more elaborate versions. They are great characters, but I feel like the great demons should stand up on their own without being the character version. I know because the Lord of Change has the Kairos Lord of Change has 2 heads. It's a more characterful version of the Lord of Change, but it still hasn't won me over, unfortunately. So the last miniature, yeah, I definitely want a great and clean one. Every time I see one, I'm jealous that I don't have one. And the last miniature on the list is a Khorne Lord on Juggernaut. I chose this miniature over the Bloodthirster because I would have put the Bloodthirster in, not a miniature that I want. Because again, it doesn't have the same character as the old Bloodthirster. It's a very... I don't know, it's hard to... It's a great looking miniature and it's got a lot of presence. I just feel like it's just missing something. Whereas this guy here, it's based on a miniature that I've always loved and I've had in the past, and that's the old Khorne Lord on Juggernaut. And I think this does... I love this miniature. This is definitely going in. I must have this miniature. So I'm not too fussed about having a Khorne army, but I do want this miniature eventually, and this again might be a miniature for a painting tutorial. John, thank you for subscribing. And also Stuart Spencer, thank you so much. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, I love this Khorne Lord on Juggernaut just because it's a homage to the old miniature, and I'm a very biased person when it comes to the miniatures I had when I was younger. That's the reason why I want this miniature. So that is the list. Let's have a look all together. Am I surprised at any of these? No, I think for me personally, I think they all did. This is where I'll put them. I don't think I'd want to move anything around. You'll have to let me know if you agree in the comments, or you can leave a comment here right now. But the entire range for Age of Sigmar is amazing, and I do love all the miniatures, but obviously some are going to win out more than others, because otherwise everything's just going to be in one tier. So I hope that's fun. I have really enjoyed doing these tier lists. I enjoyed doing the 40k one, and I definitely want to do this Age of Sigmar one as well. I will do some tier lists in the future, probably next year. I've got a lot planned for future live streams. So the next live stream in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to be looking at some more subscriber miniatures, because I've got a bit of a backlog now from what people have been sending in. So I want to just sort of catch up and take a look at their miniatures as well, because there's some great looking miniatures. So if you're watching and you've sent me pictures of your miniatures and I've not shown them yet, we'll see them in the next stream in a couple of weeks. So hopefully you'll look forward to that. As well, what else have I planned? I mentioned the weekend of painting sort of between Christmas and New Year. I want to do a live stream where we talk about good Christmas gifts for people. Again, I try and make content for these live streams. I'm thinking of good videos I can make on the channel that aren't painting tutorials that might be useful for people. But I have got a lot planned for the live streams. And again, next year I think I'll do a lot more. I want to try and do some I want to integrate painting tutorials, maybe not tutorial live streams, but just hang out and paint live streams next year when I'll get a webcam, when I've organised and sorted that out. Again, I've managed to do a long time for a long stream. My voice is going now, so we'll wrap it up here. I just again want to say thank you very much to everybody for sorry, I keep moving the microphone and then it sort of throws me off. But I want to say thank you very much for everybody who subscribed, who supports the channel. It's really appreciated. I love making all the tutorials, and it's amazing that I get to do this full time. And just doing the live streams has been a massive change to the channel as well, because it's given me the opportunity to talk to you guys on a more personal level this way. I do want to just mention that you can join the Patreon. You become a channel member, and both of those will give you access to the Discord. You'll also see behind the scenes in what I'm working on, and you'll get regular updates to what I'm currently painting for tutorials, and I'll even discuss sort of future plans for the channel as well. You can buy, there's a print on demand service, so I have designed sort of merch as well. You'll see, like, coming up to Christmas, I do want to get some more of that for myself so I can sort of showcase it a bit better. Yeah, and make sure when you're watching the tutorials, just make sure to like the videos and leave comments. I love all the comments. I get such great comments, and I do try and reply to all of them when I can. So yeah, thank you very much everybody for joining me in this live stream. It's been a lot of fun, and the next one's going to be in a couple of weeks. It's always on a Sunday at 6 o'clock, so make sure you turn your notifications on. I'll always sort of let people know a couple of days. I know I didn't this time, but next time I'll let you know a couple of days in advance, and then on the day I'll set up the stream so you can sort of set up a notification to be notified when the stream starts. But again, thank you very much. I'm going to leave you here, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Next weekend on Sunday is going to be the Ultramarine Space Marine tutorial. So yeah, but Kika, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for commenting as well and chatting. It's been a lot of fun. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.